Someone betrayed you. Someone humiliated you in front of others. Someone took what was yours and smiled while doing it. And now inside your chest there is a fire burning. You want justice. You want them to feel what you felt. You want revenge. But here is what nobody tells you. Most people destroy their own lives trying to destroy someone else's. They become obsessed. They lose sleep. They make decisions driven by anger. And in the end, the person who hurt them moves on with their life while they remain trapped in a prison of bitterness. There is another way, a way that the ancient Jewish sages discovered thousands of years ago, a way that transforms pain into power, humiliation into elevation, betrayal into breakthrough. This is not about being passive. This is not about pretending nothing happened. This is about understanding a hidden law of the universe that changes everything. The Jewish mentality teaches something radical. The best revenge is not destroying your enemy. The best revenge is becoming so successful, so elevated, so internally transformed that your enemy becomes irrelevant. Not because you are ignoring them, but because you have risen to a level where they simply cannot reach you anymore. This is the revenge tactic that only intelligent people use. And it is not a tactic of weakness. It is a tactic of absolute power. Because while your enemy is celebrating their small victory, you are building an empire. While they are spreading rumors, you are creating legacy. While they are focused on bringing you down, you are focused on going up. But here is the truth that most people never discover. This kind of revenge requires something that most human beings refuse to give. It requires you to die to your ego, to let go of the immediate satisfaction of retaliation, to plant seeds in silence while everyone around you expects you to explode. The Talmud says something profound. Who is mighty? He who conquers his own impulse. Most people think power is about dominating others. Jewish wisdom reveals that true power is dominating yourself, your impulses, your anger, your need for immediate satisfaction, because when you control yourself, you control your destiny. Imagine this. Someone steals an opportunity from you at work. They take credit for your idea. They backstab you. Your instinct is to expose them, to fight back immediately, to make sure everyone knows what they did. But what if you did something different? What if you used that pain as fuel to become so excellent that within 1 year you are in a position where they could never touch you again? What if your success becomes the loudest statement you could ever make? This is not theory. This is a mental code that has allowed the Jewish people to survive thousands of years of persecution, betrayal, and attempts to destroy them. They did not survive by fighting every battle. They survived by choosing which battles to fight and which battles to transcend. Throughout this video, I'm going to reveal the exact principles that turn humiliation into elevation. The specific mental shifts that separate people who waste years in revenge fantasies from people who build empires while their enemies watch. And the hidden spiritual law that makes this kind of revenge not only more effective but inevitable. By the end of this video, you will never see betrayal the same way again. You will understand why your pain is not a curse but a catalyst. And you will have the blueprint to turn the worst moment of your life into the beginning of your greatest chapter. Before we continue, if this resonates with you, subscribe to this channel right now. This is where we go deep into the wisdom that changes generations, not just moments. And I want you to do something else. In the comments, write the country where you are watching this from. I want to see how far this community of transformation reaches. Because what we are building here is not just about one video. It is about a movement of people who refuse to stay small. Now, let us begin. You have been lied to about revenge. Society told you that revenge is bad, that you should forgive and forget, that holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. And while that sounds wise, it misses something crucial. The real problem is not that people want revenge. The problem is that people want the wrong kind of revenge. They want revenge that makes them feel good for 5 minutes but destroys them for 5 years. They want revenge that satisfies their ego but kills their future. Let me be clear. The desire for justice is not wrong. The desire to see someone face consequences for their actions is not evil. What is wrong is when that desire controls you instead of you controlling it, when it becomes an obsession instead of a decision, when it turns you into a slave instead of a strategist. Most people think there are only 2 options. Either you get revenge by hurting them back, or you swallow your pain and pretend to be okay. Jewish wisdom reveals a third option that most people never consider. An option that is so intelligent, so powerful, so unexpected, that it changes everything. This third option is based on a principle that appears throughout the Torah and Talmud, the principle of transformation through elevation. Instead of trying to bring someone down to your level of pain, you rise so high that their actions become meaningless. Instead of trying to make them suffer, you become so blessed that their curse cannot touch you. Think about it like this. Imagine someone throws mud at you. You have 3 options. Option 1, throw mud back at them. Now both of you are dirty. Option 2, ignore the mud and pretend it did not happen. Now you are still dirty, but also lying to yourself. Option 3, go home, wash yourself, put on better clothes, and rise to a place where people throwing mud cannot even reach you anymore. This is not about being passive. This is about being strategic. Because here is what happens when you fight someone at their level. You become like them. You adopt their tactics. You start thinking like them. You start acting like them. And even if you win, you lose, because you have become the very thing you hated. The Jewish sages understood something about human nature that modern psychology is only now discovering. The person you become during the process of revenge matters more than the revenge itself. If you destroy your enemy, but destroy yourself in the process, what have you really won? Pirkei Avot teaches, who is wise? He who learns from every person, even from your enemy, especially from your enemy, because your enemy is showing you exactly where you need to grow. The place where they hurt you is the place where you were vulnerable. And instead of spending your energy trying to hurt them back, you can spend that same energy becoming so strong in that place that nobody can ever hurt you there again. Here is the illusion that most people believe. They think revenge is about the other person. It is not. Revenge is about you. It is about what you do with the pain. It is about whether you let that pain make you bitter or better, smaller or stronger, a victim or a victor. The Talmud tells a story about Rabbi Akiva, one of the greatest sages in Jewish history. He was once a simple shepherd, mocked and humiliated by educated people. He could have spent his life trying to prove them wrong. Instead, he spent his life becoming so wise, so knowledgeable, so respected, that the people who mocked him eventually became his students. That is intelligent revenge. He did not destroy his enemies. He transcended them. He did not lower himself to their level. He elevated himself beyond their reach. And in the end, his name is remembered thousands of years later, while the names of those who mocked him are forgotten. This is the mental shift that changes everything. Revenge is not about making someone else lose. Revenge is about making yourself win so completely that their loss becomes automatic. Jewish wisdom is built on one fundamental truth. You have free will, not just in your actions, but in your reactions. Not just in what you do, but in what you become. And this free will is the most powerful force in the universe because it determines everything else. The Torah does not say that life will be fair. It does not promise that people will not betray you. It does not guarantee that you will not face injustice. What it does say is that you always have a choice in how you respond, and that choice determines your destiny. This is where most people lose their power. They believe that their circumstances control them, that their emotions control them, that what others do to them controls them. But Jewish wisdom reveals something radical. Nothing controls you unless you give it permission. Your mind is the gatekeeper. Your mind decides what enters and what is rejected. The Kabbalistic teaching about the vessel and the light explains this perfectly. You are a vessel. Every experience, every pain, every betrayal is light trying to enter your vessel. But here is the key. You decide what you do with that light. Do you let it burn you, or do you let it refine you? Most people have cracks in their vessel, and when pain enters, it leaks out as bitterness, anger, and revenge fantasies. But a strong vessel does not leak. It contains that energy. It transforms that energy. It uses that energy to create something greater. This is not wishful thinking. This is a spiritual law, the law of cause and effect. The law that says what you focus on expands. If you focus on your enemy expands in your mind until they occupy every thought. But if you focus on your growth expands until your enemy becomes a footnote. The Torah teaches, do not seek revenge or bear a grudge against anyone among your people. But notice what it does not say. It does not say to pretend nothing happened. It does not say to trust someone who betrayed you. It does not say to be naive. What it says is, do not let the desire for revenge control your decisions. Do not let bitterness become your identity. There is a profound difference between seeking revenge and seeking justice. Justice is about restoring order. Revenge is about satisfying ego. Justice is strategic. Revenge is emotional. Justice builds, revenge destroys. God multiplies processes, not desires. If your desire is to destroy someone, God will not help you, because destruction is not a process that leads to blessing. But if your process is to build yourself, to elevate yourself, to become excellent, God multiplies that. And as a side effect of your elevation, your enemy becomes irrelevant. This is the hidden code that the Jewish people have used for thousands of years. When they were slaves in Egypt, they did not spend their time plotting revenge against Pharaoh. They spent their time preparing to leave, building their faith, strengthening their community. And when the time came, they did not have to fight. God fought for them. When they were exiled to Babylon, they did not spend 70 years bitter and angry. They built businesses. They created systems. They became so successful that when the exile ended, some chose to stay because they had built such good lives. This is the pattern. Pain is inevitable, but what you do with pain is optional. Betrayal is inevitable, but what you become after betrayal is optional. Injustice is inevitable, but whether injustice destroys you or defines you is optional. The sages teach. The world stands on three things: Torah, service, and acts of kindness. Notice what is not on that list: revenge, bitterness, grudges, because those things do not build worlds, they destroy them. Your mind is the battlefield where your future is decided, not your job, not your bank account, not your relationships, your mind. And the person who controls their mind controls their life. The person who lets their mind be controlled by anger, by bitterness, by the need for revenge, has already lost, even if they win every external battle. This is the foundation. You are not a victim of what happened to you. You are a creator of what happens next. And that choice, that power, that responsibility is yours alone. Let me tell you about David, 34 years old, sales manager at a tech company. He worked there for 7 years, built relationships, closed major deals, trained new employees. He was loyal. He was dedicated. And then, in one boardroom meeting, everything changed. His colleague Marcus, someone David had trained, presented David's entire strategy as his own. Slides David created, ideas David developed, months of work. And Marcus stood there. confident, taking full credit. When David tried to speak up, Marcus interrupted him, made him look confused, and the executives believed Marcus. David did not sleep that night, or the next. He replayed that meeting 1,000 times in his head. He imagined confronting Marcus. He imagined exposing him in front of everyone. He imagined quitting dramatically. He imagined revenge in every possible form. For 2 weeks, David was paralyzed. His performance dropped. He stopped caring about his work. All he could think about was Marcus, how to prove what Marcus did, how to make him pay. David's wife noticed. His friends noticed. He was becoming bitter, obsessed, consumed. Then something unexpected happened. David's grandfather called. His grandfather was 89 years old, a Holocaust survivor, a man who had seen the worst of humanity and somehow remained kind. They had not spoken in months, but somehow his grandfather knew David needed him. They met for coffee. David told him everything: the betrayal, the humiliation, the anger. He expected his grandfather to agree with him, to fuel his rage, to tell him to fight back. Instead, his grandfather smiled, not a mocking smile, a knowing smile. "Let me tell you something," his grandfather said, stirring his coffee slowly. "When I was in the camps, there was a guard. His name I will not say because I refuse to give him the power of memory. This guard targeted me every day. He found a reason to punish me: extra work, less food, public humiliation. And every night, I promised myself that if I survived, I would find him and make him pay." David leaned forward. This was exactly what he wanted to hear: validation for his anger. "I survived," his grandfather continued. "And you know what I did? I spent 5 years looking for him, 5 years of my life consumed by finding this man. And when I finally found him, he was dying in a hospital. Cancer. Alone. Broke. Miserable." "So you won," David said. "No," his grandfather replied quietly. "I lost because I gave him 5 years of my life. 5 years I could have spent building my business, starting my family, living. Instead, I was chasing a ghost. And when I found him, I realized something that changed my entire life." "What?" David asked. "Revenge is not about making someone suffer. Revenge is about making someone irrelevant. And the only way to make someone irrelevant is to become so successful that they cannot touch your peace anymore. That guard stole my freedom for 2 years in the camps, but I gave him 5 more years of my freedom by choice. That was the real tragedy." David sat in silence. Something was shifting inside him. "You're Marcus," his grandfather said, looking directly at David. "He took credit for one project, but you are about to give him credit for destroying your entire career if you continue like this. He wins not when he steals your idea. He wins when he steals your focus." That conversation changed everything for David. He made a decision that night, not to pretend nothing happened, not to forgive Marcus, not to be friends with him, but to use that betrayal as fuel. David went back to work with a different mindset. He stopped trying to expose Marcus. He stopped talking about what happened. He stopped wasting energy on proving himself to people who already made their judgment. Instead, he did something radical. He became obsessed with his own excellence. He arrived early, stayed late, not to impress anyone, but to improve himself. He took online courses, read books, reached out to mentors outside the company. He started treating his career like a business, not like a job. And most importantly, he documented everything. 3 months later, David landed the biggest client in the company's history, not through luck, through skill, through strategy, through relentless preparation. The executives noticed. The CEO noticed. And suddenly people started asking, why are we not learning from David? 6 months later, David was promoted, not to compete with Marcus, The promotion put him 2 levels above Marcus. He was now Marcus's boss's boss, and Marcus had to sit in meetings where David led. But here is the most important part. By the time David was promoted, he no longer cared about Marcus. He was not thinking about revenge. He was thinking about his next goal, his next level, his next breakthrough. Marcus had become background noise. 1 year later, the company found out about Marcus's pattern of taking credit. Not because David exposed him, but because Marcus did it again to someone else, and this time there was documentation. Marcus was fired. David was not even in that meeting. When David's wife asked him how he felt about Marcus being fired, David thought for a moment and said, "Honestly, I forgot that was even a possibility. I have been so focused on building that I stopped keeping track of what he was losing." That is intelligent revenge, not planned, not forced, but inevitable, because when you focus on rising, people who pull others down eventually pull themselves down. You do not have to do anything. Gravity does it for you. The revenge tactic that only intelligent people use is this: become so successful that your enemy's opinion becomes irrelevant. This is not passive. This is strategic. Because here is what most people do not understand. Revenge is not about punishment. Real revenge is about demonstration. Demonstrating that what they tried to take from you was never the source of your power. Demonstrating that you can rebuild bigger than before. Demonstrating that they were just a chapter in your story, not the end of it. Jewish wisdom calls this principle ascending through adversity. The idea is simple but profound. Every attack is an opportunity to rise higher, not despite the attack, but because of it. The attack reveals where you were weak. It shows you where you need to strengthen. And when you strengthen that place, you become unbreakable. Think about it. If Marcus had never betrayed David, David might have stayed comfortable. He might have coasted. He might never have discovered what he was truly capable of. The betrayal was painful, but it was also a wake-up call. It forced David to stop relying on external validation and start building internal excellence. This is why intelligent people do not fear betrayal. They expect it. They prepare for it. They understand that in any competitive environment, there will always be people who try to take shortcuts by stepping on others. But those people always lose in the long run because they never build real skill, real character, real value. The tactic works because it operates on a higher level. While your enemy is playing checkers, you are playing chess. They are thinking about the next move. You are thinking about the next 10 moves. They are focused on beating you. You are focused on becoming unbeatable. Here is the spiritual law behind this. God does not reward revenge, but God does reward growth. When you choose growth over revenge, you align yourself with the flow of blessing. You become a vessel that can receive more because you are not clogged with bitterness. You become a channel that can expand because you are not constricted by anger. The Talmud teaches, "Who is rich? He who is satisfied with his portion." But this does not mean settling for less. It means understanding that your portion is not determined by what someone else takes from you. Your portion is determined by what you create. And nobody can take your ability to create unless you give them that power. This is why intelligent people do not waste time on revenge plots. Not because they are weak, but because they are too busy building empires. They understand that the best use of their time is not destruction, but construction. Not fighting, but ascending. Not proving, but improving. And here is the beautiful irony. When you stop trying to make your enemies suffer, they end up suffering anyway. Because success is the loudest statement you can make. Elevation is the ultimate proof. Growth is the final answer. And you do not have to say a word. Your life speaks for you. This is the tactic. Not complicated, not secret, but requires something most people refuse to give: discipline. patience. The ability to delay gratification, the wisdom to see beyond the moment, and the faith to trust that justice does not always come quickly, but it always comes correctly. Principle 1. Separate the person from the pattern. Jewish wisdom teaches, judge every person favorably. But this does not mean ignore what people do. It means understand why they do it. Most people who betray you are not evil. They are broken. They are operating from scarcity. They believe that the only way to win is for someone else to lose. When Marcus betrayed David, Marcus was not thinking, how can I destroy David? He was thinking, how can I survive? How can I advance? How can I prove myself? His betrayal was not personal. It was transactional. He saw an opportunity and took it because he did not have the skill to create his own. The error most people make is taking betrayal personally. They think, this person hates me, this person wants to destroy me. And sometimes that is true. But most of the time you are just collateral damage in someone else's survival strategy. When you separate the person from the pattern, you stop wasting energy on hatred. You start seeing clearly. You understand that people who betray others are not powerful. They are desperate, and desperate people make predictable mistakes. All you have to do is not make those same mistakes. The long-term impact of this principle is freedom. When you stop taking things personally, you stop being controlled by other people's actions. You become strategic instead of emotional. You become a player instead of a victim, and that shift changes everything. Practical application. The next time someone betrays you, ask yourself, is this about me or is this about them? 9 times out of 10, it is about them. Their insecurity, their fear, their lack. And once you see that, you can respond with strategy instead of emotion. Principle 2. Build in silence. Succeed in public. The Talmud teaches, say little and do much. Most people do the opposite. They talk about their plans. They announce their comebacks. They telegraph their moves. And then they wonder why their enemies sabotage them before they even start. Intelligent revenge requires silence. Not the silence of suppression, but the silence of strategy. You do not hide because you are afraid. You hide because you are preparing. You do not stay quiet because you have nothing to say. You stay quiet because you are building something that will speak louder than words. This is one of the hardest principles for people to follow because we live in a culture that values immediate validation. We want people to know we are working. We want credit for effort. We want applause for progress. But that need for validation is the enemy of execution. When David stopped talking about Marcus and started working in silence, something powerful happened. He removed distractions. He eliminated noise. He focused all his energy on output instead of optics. And when he finally succeeded, he did not have to announce it. Everyone already saw it. The error people make is confusing visibility with progress. They think that if people do not see them working, then the work does not count. But the opposite is true. The less people see your process, the more shocking your results become. And shock creates respect. The long-term impact is credibility. People who talk a lot but deliver little lose trust. People who say nothing but deliver consistently build reputations that last. Actions always speak louder than words, but only if the actions are real. Practical application. For the next 90 days, do not announce any of your goals. Not on social media, not to friends, not even to family unless they are directly involved. Just work. And at the end of those 90 days, let your results do the talking. Principle 3. Transform pain into purpose. Kabbalah teaches that every descent is for the purpose of a greater ascent. Every pain contains a seed of breakthrough. Every betrayal carries a lesson. But most people never access that lesson because they are too busy being bitter. The difference between people who stay stuck and people who break through is simple. People who stay stuck see pain as punishment. People who break through see pain as preparation. When someone betrays you, they are unknowingly preparing you for a level you could not reach without that pain. They are forcing you to develop skills you would never develop in comfort. They are revealing weaknesses you would never address without pressure. The error people make is resisting the pain. They try to numb it. They try to skip it. They try to pretend it does not exist. But pain that is not processed becomes poison. It festers, it grows, it controls you from the shadows, but pain that is transformed becomes power. David could have stayed bitter about Marcus. He could have let that betrayal define him. Instead, he asked a different question. What is this trying to teach me? And the answer changed his life. It taught him to stop relying on loyalty and start building skill. It taught him to stop waiting for recognition and start creating value. It taught him that his worth was not determined by one company's opinion, but by his ability to create results anywhere. The long-term impact is resilience. People who transform pain into purpose do not fear future betrayals. They expect them. They prepare for them. They see them as tests, not tragedies, and that mindset makes them unstoppable. Practical application: write down the betrayal that hurt you most. Now write down 3 skills you could develop, 3 lessons you could learn, or 3 ways you could grow because of that betrayal. Then spend the next 6 months working on those 3 things. Watch what happens. The principle that most people reject is this: you must bless your enemy, not with your words, with your indifference, with your elevation, with your success that makes their curse powerless. The Torah teaches something that seems impossible. If your enemy is hungry, give him bread to eat. If he is thirsty, give him water to drink. Most people read that and think it is about being nice. It is not. It is about power. Because when you bless someone who cursed you, you prove that their curse has no effect. You prove that you operate on a different level. You prove that you cannot be brought down. This is the hardest principle because it requires you to die to your ego, to let go of the satisfaction of watching your enemy fail, to release the need for them to acknowledge what they did, to surrender the fantasy of them apologizing. Most people cannot do this. They hold on to grudges for years, decades. They wait for karma. They wait for justice. They wait for validation. And while they wait, their lives pass by. Their opportunities pass by. Their blessings pass by, because they are too busy looking backward to see forward. The Kabbalistic teaching on this is profound. When you hold a grudge, you are energetically tied to that person. You give them access to your thoughts, your emotions, your peace. You literally create a channel between your soul and theirs, and through that channel, your energy leaks. But when you release them, you cut that channel. You take back your energy, you seal your vessel, and now all the power that was leaking out stays in. It compounds, it multiplies, it transforms into blessing. This is why the sages teach, who is mighty? He who turns an enemy into a friend. Not because friendship is the goal, but because the transformation from enemy to irrelevant is the ultimate demonstration of power. It proves that you have mastered yourself, that you have transcended the game, that you have risen to a level where earthly conflicts no longer touch you. But here is the truth. Most people abandon this principle early. They try it for a week, a month. And when they do not see immediate results, they go back to bitterness. They go back to revenge fantasies. They go back to waiting for their enemy to fail. They do not understand that this principle works on a different timeline. Not days, not months, sometimes years, but it always works. Because the universe rewards elevation, always, without exception. The person who can hold this principle, who can maintain elevation even when their enemy seems to be winning, who can keep building even when justice seems delayed, is the person who inherits everything, not because they are lucky, but because they have become a vessel large enough to contain it. So here is where you are right now. Someone hurt you, someone betrayed you, someone took something from you, and you have a choice. You can spend the next year, the next 5 years, the next decade trying to bring them down, watching them, waiting for them to fail, hoping for karma, living with bitterness as your companion and revenge as your purpose. Or you can do something different, something that most people never consider because it requires more strength than they have. You can use that pain as fuel. You can transform that betrayal into breakthrough. You can take that humiliation and turn it into elevation. Imagine yourself 5 years from now. You have built something incredible, not to prove anything to your enemy, but to prove something to yourself. You wake up every day with purpose, with peace, with power. Your life is full, your mind is clear, your heart is free. And somewhere, your enemy still remembers you, still talks about you, still defines themselves by what they did to you, while you have moved on to a level where their name does not even cross your mind anymore. That is the future available to you, not through luck, not through wishful thinking, but through the choice you make today, the choice to take responsibility for what happens next, the choice to build instead of destroy, the choice to rise instead of retaliate. Jewish wisdom has survived thousands of years because it understands a truth that never changes. The people who focus on destroying their enemies destroy themselves. But the people who focus on building themselves build legacies that last forever. Your pain is not a curse, it is a catalyst. Your betrayal is not an ending, it is a beginning. And the revenge you seek is not in watching someone else fall. It is in watching yourself rise. May you have the wisdom to see clearly. May you have the strength to build patiently. May you have the faith to trust that justice always comes. And may you become the living proof that the best revenge is a life well lived. If this message resonated with you, I invite you to take the next step with us. Subscribe to this channel and become part of a community that refuses to stay small. We are not just watching videos here. We are building a movement of people who understand that wisdom applied is power realized. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it, someone who is stuck in bitterness, someone who needs permission to rise. And join our community where we go even deeper into the principles that transform generations. Comment below, what is one action you're going to take this week to start your elevation? Because wisdom without action is just information. But wisdom applied changes everything. I will see you in the next video.